And we're back. My next candidate at large, Max Tassinari. Welcome, Max.
Thanks, Sean.
So, Max, why don't you I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk to the community, tell them why you're running.
Gladly. My name's Max Tassinari. I'm running for town council at large. I'd very much appreciate your vote on November 7th. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and I'm a resident of Winthrop. This is where my wife and I chose to raise our family. This is where our roots will be. This is where our present and our future are. And I'm invested in this community, and that's really why I want to run for this seat. I look around the town and I see that we have a lot of big, powerful neighbors, namely the City of Boston, City of Revere, Massport, MWRA. But what I don't see is a lot of advocacy outside of our town borders. I want to bring that to the town council. I have a 15-year career in accounting, finance, and budgeting. 6 of those have been spent at a state agency. And I've built my career on expertise, hard work, and integrity. And I've made a lot of good friends and relationships over the years, and I want to bring those relationships to bear for the town so that we can start punching above our weight, bringing funding in from federal and state sources so that we can advocate outside of our borders for better treatment, and so that we really can improve the quality of life here in the town. And that's why I'm running. I'm running for my children, I'm running for my family, I'm running for you, for your children, for all of our families, for all of our seniors, and for everyone who lives in this town.
Thank you, Max. So, Max, as you're aware, that the town has a question on the ballot regarding the new fire station. Do you support this initiative?
I am supportive of the new fire station, and I'll tell you why. I'm not going to look a firefighter in the eye and say $40 million from the town to improve our public safety is not worth their life. And at the end of the day, there are too many folks in our fire department suffering from cancer and other diseases that we can decrease the rate of infection or the rate of getting sick by providing them with adequate resources.
So how are you with where they want to put the fire station?
I don't think we have a choice.
Okay.
We don't have a choice on that. But what I will say is I think that we would have benefited from a wider community process.
Okay.
5 months to digest a $40 million investment in a town this size is not a lot of time. That's a big pill for the taxpayer to swallow. And frankly, I don't think doing things on an emergency basis 30 years after the fact is really beneficial to the town in terms of a master plan, planning for the future, and setting ourselves up for success.
Yeah. Well, I know you're right, but I know that they've talked about, the fire station for many, many years and
Right.
what's going to happen, and now they finally have it on the ballot. And I know there's been a lot of talk in and out of the location, where it should be, why is it there? This is a historical area, all of those types of things. But there's no question that there should be a fire station with what we're talking about and listening. So, thank you.
Unfortunately, the vote is only for that location.
Right.
And for the debt override. I will say this, there may be opportunities that present themselves after the fact to bring funding in from the outside once we have approved that debt
That's true,
on the ballot. So,
because in that when you build a school, you get that MSBA
yeah,
portion, but they don't allow any of that for town public buildings, which they should start to look at those types of funding.
So there is federal money out there for public safety buildings.
Okay.
So
Good.
I think once we get this across the finish line, we'll probably have the town manager take another look at what's available, what's out there, and what we can do to support our fire and basically all of our departments.
So you talk a lot about, your experience with finance and stuff. How about municipal budgets? Do you have any experience
So
with
municipal
those?
budget's not that much different from a state budget. Everyone's
Okay.
got to play by the same rules. In fact, the municipal budget is a little bit more stringent than, especially in procurement, than what the state has to do. It still all comes down to what you take in, what you can put out. It's not rocket science, but there's a lot of nuances in there that I do understand, having those 6 years of state finance. I think we have a lot of opportunities in this town to increase our revenues from state and federal sources. I think that the current town manager's done a great job in promoting, going out and getting that federal and state money. I think there's a lot more we could do. I think there's a lot more resources that the town could put into that, because that's one of those things when we talk about fiscal responsibility, where an investment will really pay off for us in the short term and the long term. That is bringing money in from federal sources to do infrastructure projects, or to do like school subsidies, stuff like that.
Right.
That will free up other money in the budget that we can put towards public works, so we could grow the pie, so to speak, so that everybody gets a little more.
Okay, so you worked 5 or 6 years in the state on state budgets.
Correct.
Okay. Yep. And you
And
worked.
so,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
so our budget that I manage now is over $300 million. It's not a joke. It's a statewide agency. It's tons of infrastructure. It's a large operating budget with several employees. We're up to like 900, almost 1,000 full-time employees. It's a real business. It's a real business, and that's the kind of lens that I want to bring to the council when we go to do that budget review.
Okay, thank you. So as a council member, we'll stick with budget for a second, but what do you perceive your role as related to the school budget and the school district?
So from what I've researched and learned from other counselors, from the council president, and current and former school committee members, the council's responsibility is to basically appropriate a lump sum to the school committee. And then the school committee, the superintendent, and the school CFOs work to parse that out where it's appropriately, like where it's needed, where the resources are best used. But as a counselor, I would be a strong advocate, like I said a minute ago, in growing the pie. So the more money we can bring into the town, the more money we can allocate to each of our departments. The schools being, one of the most important, because that's really our future. Educating our children is, top priority. Top priority for me as a parent myself, with one child about to matriculate into Fort Banks kindergarten. So that's going to be an interesting change of pace in my house. And then a second, my daughter was 2 years behind. So providing our children with the best possible education, that's always top of mind for me. And I always want to see public school systems get the best resources available. And part of that is advocating for increased revenue.
Great. There's been a lot of discussion regarding the old middle school. And it's, as I've said in previous conversations, I'm surprised we're still talking about the old middle school.
8 years, is that what it is?
It's been 8 years
yeah.
since yes, 8 years since we've opened. In 2014, it'll be 8 years since we finally left that building to go into the new high school, middle school. Do you have any vision for that site? Do you have any ideas of what you would like to do with it? I know that the town council president has proposed some ideas. What are your thoughts?
So I don't think that the town council president's idea is a bad idea. I think it's something that we should explore and get more information on, to see if there's interested parties in doing that kind of business in this town. But I also think that we need to revisit the 2017, 2018 Citizens Committee results. There was a lot of hundreds of people involved in that, and a lot of like citizen volunteer hours were put into developing a plan for that site. That's kind of been put on the back burner. I mean, we haven't seen much of what those results were. I think we need to bring that out of the closet, dust it off, and try to recruit some new volunteers to refresh it and get some new ideas from the citizens around town. I don't want to see the middle school being another fire station where we're doing it at like the 25th hour and it needs to be done because it needs to be done. We shouldn't be making decisions in an emergency, like those kind of investment decisions in an emergency situation.
Okay.
That's not a good way to plan for the future of the town.
So you want to take a look at what those other ideas were back in 17 and 18,
Yeah.
and see what the thoughts were on that,
See what the thoughts were.
and then compare it to what the council president has also proposed.
Well, we should include that council president's proposal in those ideas, but we also want to refresh, give the current population of Winthrop, because there's been a lot of changeover, current population of Winthrop a chance to contribute to what those ideas might be, what they would want to see down there. I long-time residents and brand-new residents all want to tell me how much they want a pool in town. And
I've heard that quite a bit, yes.
I'll tell you this, though, pools are very expensive to operate. The water isn't cheap, especially in our town. The chemicals aren't cheap. We've seen I'd say like a 40% increase in costs on pool chemicals that we buy at the state level. That's a big jump,
Yeah.
especially for a town like ours with limited revenue resources.
But it is true, there's been a lot, I do know, I remember when we were building the new middle high school, and that was a hot item, right? Well, what are we gonna do with this area? And one of the things was people wanted a pool. They wanted a pool. They don't, they wanted that opportunity. You have a pool in Revere at the Garfield, but people were very, can we have a pool? So, but I don't think it's great to say, can we have it? But then you have to, like you said, you got to take a look at all the expenses.
We have to maintain it. We'd have to staff it. There are a lot of facets to look at when.
But are people, but within those fees that people would pay to participate in that pool, would that take care of that? I guess that's some of those things that they would have to analyze.
Yeah, that's a much deeper dive. We're getting
Right.
way in the weeds on that because
Right.
we really we don't even have a pool on the table right
Exactly,
now.
exactly. So see, we can get right back into that pool talk. So let's talk about fees. And over the last couple of years, the town has implemented an annual trash fee per household. And, there's been some talk about that. How do you feel about those fees?
I mean, I'm right there with everyone else. I don't like paying them, right?
Yeah.
But I understand we always have to have our trash pick. We're going to have trash pickup. There's limited possibilities for how we pay for that. If we don't pay for it with a trash fee, that means something else in the budget will be reduced in order to pay for that trash collection, and then something else will suffer. What I really don't like about the trash fee is the fact that we really didn't get any input in that trash fee. Okay, so there wasn't a lot of time or space made for public comment on that trash fee, and it's just one more piece of the puzzle where people feel a little bit of a disconnect between their town government and their everyday life, and I think we're seeing a similar reaction to the presentation of the fire station.
Okay, so in regards to that trash fee, it kind of just appeared to the residents from their perspective.
That's what the perspective is, yeah.
And then I did notice that over the course of this past year, they decided to cut that. They'll do it and
split it,
so that therefore it might be better for people on what they're doing. And then they also added the the bags?
The excess.
Yeah, so if you go over that, and then they.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to see what's left in my own personal budget for Christmas Eve because we're gonna need a few of those overflow bags at my house.
So what about the water rates? Those always seem to be a hot issue, you know.
The water, yeah.
We can tell when
Yeah.
the water rates come out, right? The mailing comes out, and all of a sudden, Facebook lights up, and it's, oh, what's going on this? So I guess the question is, you know, I'm hearing a lot of different things that they're realizing about infrastructure and stuff like that. But what do you have any recommendations regarding how the current rates are and what we can do to help defray any of those additional costs?
So I'll tell you this. That water bill. I'm reminded of that water bill almost every day. I fill up that bathtub two times, right? Once for each kid, and sometimes the water runs longer than I want it to run, to be honest with you, because who doesn't want me to shut it off, and who wants to drink from the faucet? Mayhem. In terms of lowering the cost for everybody in town, I think we really need to understand what that water bill is paying for. I think we should probably have informational session or some kind of way to disseminate information of what we're paying for on that water bill. A lot of it does come down to the infrastructure, how we're basically losing about $1 million in water a year from old faulty main lines. And that would be one of the projects that I would go and seek federal and state funding for.
Okay.
Because there is a good chunk of funding available to municipalities from the bipartisan infrastructure law that can help do water main replacement.
So how does that work?
For our town, I would first recommend a technical assistant grant,
Okay.
because right now we don't have the capacity to be writing those large federal grants. So the first thing we would try to get is either funding from the federal government for a grant writer, or direct assistance within a federal agency that they sometimes are able to assign federal employees to help work a case for a town. And then we would put in for either a competitive grant, or it would probably be a competitive grant in this case. We would apply for that, and you just kind of wait until they say yes or no, and then in terms of advocating, we have a very strong advocate for the area not far away, who has a prominent position within our Congress. I mean, I know that could be a hot topic today because we still are waiting for a speaker, right?
Yeah, I haven't heard that they've elected a speaker yet. But.
Right. But having good advocates that we can reach out to will make a difference in terms of being able to close out on one of those grants.
Okay. So we do talk a lot about Winthrop, and Winthrop has this revenue issue, right? Because we're a small, peninsula. There's not a lot of revenue coming into the town, but people are trying to constantly bring some ideas. Do you have any ideas you bring to the table for the town to earn more revenue?
One thing I don't want to see done is I really don't want to ask the taxpayers in town to dig deeper, because we're doing that every year, and there's only so far you can dig in your own pocket. So that's why I think it's really important to advocate outside, to bring in outside funding from the federal and state government. There's a lot of money to be had out there, and most of it's and we have our own fair share of that for what we pay in income taxes. We're not getting our fair share of that right now.
So you feel that we're just, and part of why we're not getting that is because we're not requesting it. We're not applying for it.
Applying for it and requesting it have become more and more popular in town now with the current town manager. I went to his presentation the other night, and I was able to meet Meredith Hurley, who's doing a lot of grants for public health, which is great. But what we don't have is a real strong grants unit in the town. And that's something that I believe we should be investing in. And the current grant writers that work for the town are a bit spread out, and they don't have a lot of constant communication with each other on how they could support each other or help one another identify opportunities. That's something that we should try to grow and invest in so that we can, like I said in the beginning of the conversation, we can grow this pie. We need to grow the pie without asking our taxpayers to dig even deeper. We need to punch above our weight class when it comes to advocating for funding from our federal and state partners.
So are you talking about when you're bringing in these grants would be for capital improvements or
there's a lot of money for capital type
as
stuff,
opposed to personnel? Because
if we're allowed to bring in a federal grant to pay for a capital project, right?
Mm-hmm.
That should open up funding to pay on the operating side.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Right.
So that's how we grow the pie. That's what I mean.
Okay.
It's a little
'Cause
bit of
I
a
know
budgetary nuance where you're shifting.
Right. I know we're trying.
Expenses.
We talk about, with grants that come in, and unfortunately, I think through the years, systems have become reliant on those grants, and those
It's true.
grants have taken care of personnel sometimes. And so what we've done
that's okay.
is yes, but what we've tried to do through the years now is pull the personnel out of it
Yep.
and get them into that fixed, your operating budget, so that we can maybe look at those grants to utilize them for
Other things.
other things such as the capital and
Yeah,
stuff.
there are a lot of different types of grants. One example is a formulaic grant where once you're in the program, based on how the population that you serve, you're able to almost automatically get that money as long as you put in the application and provide the information that is asked of you. Those are what they call formulaic grants. It's a little bit detailed, but that's one of those things I think that the town is benefiting from now in the school system.
Okay, great. So if elected, you're one person out of 9 on the town council, but you've got an idea, you want to get this through. What steps and strategies are you going to use to see if you can get your initiatives passed? That's
a good question, and it really comes down to collaboration and cooperation with fellow councilors. That starts with a good dialogue, being open-minded to other folks' ideas, how they think they could improve what I'm presenting. Trying to obviously recruit the town council president, because that's carries a lot of weight on the council, bringing things to vote. I think it really comes down to communication and collaboration, and that's not just something that I would apply to council dealings, but I'd want to see more communication and collaboration from the council and from the town to the general citizens of Winthrop. I think that the lack of communication is something that is felt by many of the citizens, and I think sometimes it feels like the council operates behind closed doors. I'd like to spend more time communicating to folks.
And how would you do that?
One example is I would leave my Facebook page open to post relevant updates. I'd advocate for an updated and more intuitive website. The website's great, has a lot of information. Sometimes it's not easy to find. So giving that an update, making it more intuitive, making it a little more accessible too, to folks who maybe aren't able to read it online, or giving it that accessibility update. Another thing that I'd like to do is hold, monthly coffee hours. Different places around town on a weekend morning, hang out. We have really great breakfast places in this town. There's not one I've been to that I haven't liked. And just letting folks know where I'll be so I can hear what their concerns are. So being accessible, being open-minded, being collaborative, and like we talked about when we talked about the middle school idea, it's like bringing people in and giving them a voice.
Yeah, I heard this once, and it's so true, is that, you know, there are, out of our community, really 2% pay attention to what's going on in town government. But out of that 2%, 98% of that 2% are very vocal. So, I mean, and that's what, and sometimes we're not hearing everybody, right? We're hearing those that are being vocal. And so what occurs is that you have, you know, people are complaining because they don't know what's going on, but it's difficult to get that information out to people. You're meeting every other week, you know, for a town council meeting, but, and we do have it on WCAT, you can watch it, and they, you know, they can see it in other areas as well. But yeah, I've always found that it's, no matter how much you try and push, what are the best ways to do it? That's why I ask people, what are you going to do about communicating?
The world is a lot different than it used to be, because in days long past, everybody would be reading a copy of a local newspaper. Everybody in the town. So that was a great way, great form of simple communication, and that's still a good way of communication. A lot of people still pick up the Winthrop transcript and read it, you know, cover to cover. We shouldn't abandon those forms of communication just because the audience isn't always there. So that would be another place that we could put information. And likewise, WCAT. That's another good place for community. Maybe something like this every once in a while to get some information out to the town. Yeah. And again, this stuff all goes on YouTube, so it's shareable on the internet as well. So that's that was one I haven't thought of. So that's good. Thank you.
All right. So now what I like to ask here is, give me 3 words that best describe you. Just 3 words now, and why?
I think the best 3 words that describe me are dad, husband, and advocate. Mostly because, to me, and I know a lot of other people out there, family is the most important thing. We've got to take care of our family, and we've got to make sure that our successes are shared. So, again, it's growing that pie. It's bringing other people up with you, and that's where the advocacy comes in, where I always want to promote what's best for as many folks as possible, and that's where I would want to reach outside the town to pull in our state senator, pull in our state rep, to pull in city governments that neighbor us, to recruit folks to advocate with us and for us when it comes to negotiations with other neighbors such as Mass Board, MWRA, to advocate for us when it comes to federal and state funding, to advocate for us when it comes to traffic issues getting in and out of town. There's only 2 lanes to get in and only 2 lanes to get out. It's not easy.
And they're making it a little harder sometimes trying to get out on Revere Beach side.
They're making it a little harder.
But it's going to be done eventually.
It's going to be done eventually, and the folks, and we're all going to benefit from it because it'll be an update to our infrastructure, update to our gas delivery and water delivery. It's hard to live through it, though.
Yeah.
It is. It is. And the folks who live over there on Revere Street are feeling the pain more than anyone else. And I've heard about it. So.
Well, we had to deal with that with the beach, though, too. So it was, you know, we went through
on the renourishment.
Yeah, we went through that for a couple of years, but we're very happy about it now.
Right.
That it's done its purpose. I know people talk about how it, you know, all the different ways of the beach, but it's done what the main focus was. That water's no longer coming over the wall and coming down our streets, so our houses feel protected.
Right.
So. Well, thank you so much. I want to give you an opportunity for a closing statement if you'd like.
Sure. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, WCAT, for giving me this opportunity. I hope that what you've learned from me tonight, you'll feel more comfortable casting your vote November 7th for me, Max Tassinari, on that ballot. Thank you again. Good night.
So I want to thank you all for watching. I just want to remind you all, November 7th is coming up, and please make sure that you get out to vote. Also on November 7th at 7:30, we will have an election show hosted by myself and Eric Gaynor. So we hope that you will tune in. So with that, don't forget to vote. Thank you.